Hello and welcome to a new episode of AICA Podcast. Today we're going to talk with Karen von Veh, Professor Emerita at the University of Johannesburg and a good colleague of mine during the AICA Congress and during the AICA activities. So Karen, it's a amazing opportunity to have this meeting with you and to talk about the Foreign Committee in AICA, to talk about your project. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation and for taking the time to do this episode.
Thank you for inviting me. This is a great
So,
pleasure. I hope I'm not too nervous to actually answer your questions.
I think we are both nervous. I'm always nervous when I speak to amazing cultural workers as you are, and it's simply amazing that this episode is taking place. I'm talking in Romania, from Romania, and you're talking from South Africa, and this amazing podcast is making everything possible. And AICA is also making everything possible for us cultural workers, curators to connect to each other. I know you are the president of the Foreign Committee in AICA, and I would like to ask you why did you change the name from the Founding and Fellowship Committee to the Foreign Committee? I know this is a new change that happened in this committee.
Yes, it's very recent. And we've been trying to change it for a while because the FFC was started in 2008, and it was originally to find funds to try and help people, young people, mostly young critics who couldn't afford the AICA fees, to join AICA. So they were trying to get people to pay double their normal yearly rate so that there could be some money towards bringing in young people and people from places where there was no AICA. So in fact, this means the primary function of the FFC was always based on cultural exchange and solidarity and bringing people in, and especially people in areas that didn't have AICA sections. So that was the start of it. But it increasingly over the years became seen as a fundraising committee. And when I joined, which was quite a lot later, I think it was about 2018, 2019, I can't remember exactly. But when I joined, we suddenly felt that we wanted to become an outreach group. We wanted to bring people in, but without having to fundraise, because what we actually realized is that fundraising is really difficult.
Yes, it is.
And it's something that you really need professionals to do. None of us had access to people that we could ask for funding. And around that time, of course, the 2019, I think it was, when we had the COVID, suddenly
Yeah.
people thought, well, hang on a minute, here we are during COVID, and suddenly everybody is talking to each other online. And we realized that if you're talking to each other online, you can do that with a relatively small money. And it's a way of bringing in people all over the world who often don't have the money to travel. They don't have AICA in their AICA sections in their countries. There's no way to get them involved. But if we were doing things online, people can join us from anywhere, and they can engage in important discussions. So what we wanted to do is try and apply for the small money that we needed from the yearly options of having 2,000 euros for a project. And we applied for some of these. There was now a problem with that because at that point, I became the new chair. It was Danielle Perrier before me. And I don't have an AICA section, so I'm in the open section. And you have to have two sections who support whatever project is running to get the 2,000 euros. So we didn't have sections. We didn't have, well, I didn't have a section. Not everybody in our committee was able to say that they would manage the money for us. And it just became more and more difficult to do it. So we did 4 of our projects that way. We raised the money and we got people who managed the money for us because we didn't have a bank account and I wasn't in an AICA section. And it became unwieldy. And at around that time, we spoke to people. The secretariat, Malgorzata, had become the new president, and she suggested that we change our name and we change our mandate, because a lot of people said if you're the Fellowship Fund Committee, your mandate is to raise money. And none of us on the committee felt that was where our strength was. Our strength was in getting people to talk to each other and getting people to discuss things. And we had an ongoing project called the Ruptured Histories Project. Danielle was the first president when we started the Ruptured Histories Project, and the idea came from Anselmo Viata and who was the other person? Nilofer.
Yes.
So they came up with this idea of ruptured histories and looking at decolonization. And decolonization is one of my sort of pet themes. A lot of my research is done around decolonization because I've been in Africa for most of my life. And I was very happy to get involved in this. And we had some very successful projects. I don't know if you've heard any of them. The first one, in fact, was organized by Danielle, and it was on the history of slavery and decolonization in the museum, interrogating the history of slavery. And we actually had, that was suggested by Robert Jan Muller and Joke de Wolf from AICA Netherlands. Yeah. So that we had some fabulous speakers. We had Adriano Pedrosa from Musk and Valika Schmoelde. Sorry, my pronunciation is not so good either. From the Rijksmuseum, talking about the slavery exhibition, and Adriano Pedrosa, who was talking about an exhibition that he'd had in South America. And then we had Anthony Bogues from the Study for Slavery and Justice at Brown University, and Babacar Mbaya Diop from Senegal, who presented also their perspectives on the subject. And it was very, very lively discussion. And in fact, I was the moderator for that first one. And then that was such a success, we thought that we must carry on with this. And we did another one in 2022. That was the Karachi Biennale, and that was organized by Nilofer Farouk. And then the third one was in 2024 in February. And that was one that I invited a speaker from my university to, Professor Brenda Schmarman, who spoke about monuments commemorating Cecil Rhodes, because the theme of this one was about what happens to monuments when they are no longer okay in a country. Monuments from previous colonizers, what does one do with them? Do you throw them away, or do you engage with them and make something new from them? So that was the topic of that one. We also had Estonian artist Christina Norman, who spoke about her after-war project for that webinar. And that responded to the dramatic aftermath of the relocation of the Bronze Soldier Monument in Tallinn in 2007. So
Mhm.
we also had some respondents. We had Alexander Koch from Berlin and Dmitry Vilensky from Russia, who responded to the two speakers. And then we had a second webinar in 2024 that was later on in the year, on the 13th of September. And that was was called Ruptured Histories in the Shadow of Russia, Uncomfortable Heritage in Post-Soviet Art, Public Spaces and Museums. So again, looking at public spaces, looking at how people engage with difficult histories. And we had a lot of speakers for that. It was a slightly different format. We had one of our committee members that was Arcadius Polchak
From Poland, yes.
from Poland, yes. And we invited Yevhenia Molia from Kyiv, Kinga Siwo from the Polish academic who specialized in cultural studies, Sabina Shinklinskaya. I'm looking at these words and I'm trying to read them properly, so please excuse my pronunciation. She is an established Azerbaijani artist. Lali Perteneva, an art historian from Tbilisi, Georgia, and Nikita Kadan, a Ukrainian artist. And that was a very lively discussion. Did you hear that one?
Yes, I listened to the three ones, but I would like to ask you, how are webinars from your perspective? Because you are an art historian, you are a art critic. How do you see a webinar without being in the same establishment with the other speakers? From your point of view, how?
From my point of view,
Yes.
because I live half of my time in a nature reserve in South Africa, miles away from the center of the city,
Yeah.
and the other half of my time in England, where my grandchildren are, I tend to do almost everything online. I see my students online. I supervise masters and PhD students, and I do that online because I'm not always in Africa. And even when I am, I'm not always in Johannesburg. It's about 200 kilometers from where I live. So I couldn't work without doing things online. I really like to see people in person, and I do make an effort to get to conferences and get to things when I can. But the online platform has given me a completely different way of doing things.
Yeah, I think it's important for this committee to have a strong voice as yours, and also a strong opinion about doing things online, because a lot of art critics, art historians, members of AICA are not used of working only online. And I think I know you're doing a terrific job, and the forum committee is doing a terrific job, because I see your projects, I see the press releases, I see the videos on the YouTube platform. And I would like to ask you, because I think it's a question that I heard in several AICA meetings. Do you feel that us as cultural workers need to be more of a influencer, to have a wider audience, to have a larger numbers of you? Is this important from your point of view, to have hundreds and hundreds of you, or it's important the information?
I don't know about hundreds of views.
Yeah.
I just think that having this kind of platform makes it available to everybody. It's a more, what's the word, egalitarian way of
Yes.
sharing knowledge. Not everybody can afford to fly all over the world. It's not good for the planet anyway.
Yes.
But yeah, and I just think that obviously it's nice being with people. It was wonderful having the people who came to the conference, for example, being in my university with me. But it's not always possible, and it does mean that more people have the opportunity to link up and to join and discussions and to be part of something. And a lot of the students that I know would never be able to go around, but they can join. So when we had our webinar that included my friend who's the professor also at my university, and a lot of the students there know her, and a lot of the people in South Africa know her. So we had a lot of people from South Africa joining, and most of them had never heard of AICA, and there aren't always that many opportunities for them to do things face to face.
Yeah, I know.
And there's a way of getting the name of AICA out there as well. So, for people who think, oh, well, let's see if this is interesting and maybe I can join and see if this is something I would like to be part of. So I think
for
it
sure.
has its place.
Yeah. Also, the AICA podcast was created in order to promote, first of all, AICA, and also to present all the awesome members that we have worldwide and what this amazing network of cultural workers is doing for everybody. And I would like to ask you, if a member of AICA wants to join the forum committee, can he do that? What's the bureaucracy to
Please.
do that? Yeah, really? You're accepting?
They just have
Okay.
to come to me and ask if they want to be part of it. Yes. Everybody I have on my committee has just come up to me and said, please, can we be part of your committee? And if you have a webinar you want to present, we now have access, because now that we're the forum committee, we have money that we ask for every year, and we are given, and it's managed by AICA, and we don't have to worry about bank accounts. And we have money available to present podcasts for you. So if you want to do a podcast, and we have one member at the moment, Ezra Yildiz from Turkey, who joined us quite late last year because she has a podcast ready to go. So she's joining us, and we're going to help her make the platform for the podcast. So
it's amazing.
that's what we're there for. We'll do some of our own as we can. We're going to start on a new series in the new year. We decided that we've done 5 now on ruptured histories, and maybe we should be looking at some slightly different thread that we can follow. We haven't decided what yet. We're going to have a meeting early in January probably and decide what we want to do. But I think the first one of the next year will be Ezra's project. And she has that. She's already approached people to be in it. So that's how we're going to be spending our money on presenting webinars. And anyone who would like a webinar can approach us. They're welcome to. We'd like them to. Yeah,
that's good. And also, you are going to continue the Rupture History project also with monuments and artworks that have a difficult history, if I can say that.
I don't know. We've done it now for 3 or 4 years. So we thought, well, maybe we'll do something else for a while. We might go back to that. I mean, there's always something in the decolonization debate that needs to be raised somewhere along the line. So we probably will. I mean, our last one was about extraction, the way people have gone in and not only colonized countries, they've extracted everything out of them and still are. So that was the topic of the last one. And yeah, I think we haven't quite decided where we're going next, whether we're going to carry on with that or not. But we thought maybe we'd look at what other avenues there are at the moment that are particularly pressing discussions that need to be had.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
We will have that discussion between ourselves in January when we have our first meeting.
Yeah, you told me, and I know that you are part of the AICA Open section, and I think you are the first speaker that I have at this podcast, which is part of the Open section. Can you tell me a little bit about the bureaucracy of being part of the Open section? Who can apply to be part of the Open section?
Okay, well, anybody who doesn't have an AICA section in their country can apply. I mean, we
Yeah.
don't have one in South Africa. And at one stage, I was going to try and start one. At that stage, I had invited various colleagues of mine to join AICA through the open section. And I thought, once I've got enough people who are AICA members, we can start our own section. But that didn't work. Firstly, one
Okay.
of them retired, then the other one emigrated, and then we only had like 3 people left. So I've now got another few people to join, but we never quite have enough people. Then we would just be all of us running the section, which is a bit silly. So I had a discussion with a young man from the Center for the Less Good Idea, which is a project that was started by William Kentridge in Johannesburg. And a lot of young people join there, and it's people trying to start out in the art market, either as artists or as art promoters or as curators. And this young man was a writer, and he was interested in starting an AICA section. So I met him during the Congress. I met him and had a long discussion with him about it. And I told him the problems I had with not actually getting enough people just to start a section. So I said to him, start off by joining the open section. I will promote you, and I will promote any of the writers that you have who want to join, and I will find a second promoter for them, because that's what you have to do. If you're joining in the open section, you
Yeah.
have to have 2 people to promote you. So he's going to join, and he's going to one of the women, a young woman, Barbara Rousseau, who was one of the respondents with the UNESCO speakers, is also
The
part of
Congress.
his thing, and she also wants to join. So I think we have a few who are going to join now. So we will have a few more, and maybe then with them and us, we might even have enough to start an AICA section. So we'll just see. We'll wait and see if they get accepted as new members. It is a bit of a thing to try and do it, because you have to have enough publications, and I mean, you have to, for if wherever you join, but you've got to find the sponsors. So unless they know who to approach to ask to sponsor them, they wouldn't know how to join. So that's why I'm doing this with them now. So hopefully we'll have a few more members from
That
South
would be great.
Africa.
Yeah, I know that the open section needs to have 2 recommendations from a different person. I don't know if from different countries, but I think it's important for each cultural worker, curator, art critics to be part of AICA, just to see what's happening in this international association, also to see the projects, to be part of different committee, to be part of the Congress. And I know that the Congress, the latest Congress of AICA, was taking part in South Africa this year. Can you tell me a little bit in the final minutes of the podcast, how was the experience between AICA and UNESCO, and how was what's your input about what happened at the Congress and the follow-up information?
Okay, well, the integration of UNESCO and AICA was fantastic, I thought. I really thought that the UNESCO speakers gave something fresh and new to our Congress, and it was interesting. And they wouldn't have been people that would normally have come if we just asked for, people to submit papers. So I actually thought that they were really, it made it for a really good conference. I thought it was fabulous having them there. And the first keynote speaker was so good. Fadzai Muchemwa is her name, and she was the chief curator in Zimbabwe, in the Harare Zimbabwe Museum, Art Museum. And her speech was spectacular. It just, for me, it encapsulated everything that we wanted to raise. It was all the issues in one speech, and I thought that she was very, very good. And then we had a whole range of different approaches and different ways of presenting their material, but I thought it was fabulous. I really enjoyed their presence there. They engaged. They were there. They were, really engaged with what was going on. I wished we could have had more AICA speakers. We actually ended up with over 50 people applying
Yeah.
for what we had at the time was like 15 places, and then we tried to take it up a bit, and we had 20 places, but then some of the people who we'd accepted dropped out at the very last minute because they couldn't get visas or they didn't have the money to come. So we could have actually had a few extra and slotted them in. It would have been nice, but
Yeah.
you never know these things in advance. It was all a bit too late, told to us a bit too late that they couldn't come. But I thought the conference went off reasonably well. I
Okay.
think people enjoyed it. I hope they enjoyed it. It was, we tried to make it fun in the evenings and the excursion at the end, just so people could see a little bit more than just the University of Johannesburg, which is not very exciting to see. So, but I thought it went well. What do you think? You were there.
No, I was not there. I just
Oh,
I had an episode with Usha Salajim.
okay.
Yeah, I know what was happening in the Congress because I talked to you. I talked with Ana Lucia Beck before when the Congress was just starting to happen. I talked to Usha Selajim, a speaker coming from UNESCO and an amazing
Oh,
African
Usha, yeah,
country.
Usha's amazing. Yeah, she also gave a very good speech at the
I,
conference.
I was thinking about that, and I really felt sorry about not being able to participate because the podcast with her was simply amazing. With her talking about her artworks, talking about her difficulties in the art domain, and also being so awesome with all the personal details that happened to her in her personal activity. Just to circle back about a little bit about AICA, I would like to ask you as a final question for this podcast. What advice would you say to an art critic that wants to join AICA and for the moment doesn't have the courage to do that? I don't know, what advice? What should be the spark for they just to apply for AICA?
I think depending on whether they have an AICA branch in their country or not,
Yeah.
because then they can approach somebody from AICA and say, would I be a suitable candidate? But if they don't, then it's very difficult. I mean, I only got to hear about AICA because years and years and years ago, Richard Gregor invited me to be a speaker at the AICA Congress in Slovakia. So I was an invited speaker for that. And then I was introduced, and then he said, I'll sponsor you if you want to join. Now, all we can do really is reach out to people in our surrounds who we know who might be interested in joining, or just, maybe invite people to podcasts and things and say, you can join AICA if you would like to. But we need to actually I think those people like me who have access to students and young people who are in the art market and who are trying to write and who are trying to publish, that it's possible and they can approach me. But I mean, that's just me, and I'm in South Africa. So you would need people doing that in different countries. You would need people who become ambassadors for AICA in places where there is no AICA. And that's also, I think, an important thing when we're doing the webinars, that we are taking projects and people to come and speak who are from countries where there is no AICA. And a lot of the decolonial stuff is that kind of topic. It's bringing in people who are in countries. I mean, I don't know how many AICA branches there are in Africa, maybe 2 in a
Okay.
whole continent, so the whole of Southern Africa doesn't have an AICA branch. That's a lot of people and a lot of space and a lot of stuff going on, where people mostly don't even know that AICA exists.
Yeah,
So
I think
I think if
they
we
should
are presenting stuff, sorry, I was going to say, if we're presenting stuff that they can listen to or tap into somehow and get to know that we do exist, then maybe we can draw people in that way.
Yeah, for sure we can do it, and for sure AICA in different countries that doesn't have a national section should apply to create one, and also they should apply for an open section as you are. And Karen, thank you very much. It was an amazing episode. I had no idea when half an hour just went by. And thank you for telling me about the forum committee. Thank you for saying all the information regarding our peers that participate at different projects, and thank you for sharing all the information about your activity in South Africa, a little bit of small information, and how AICA can be a network that should grow and is growing, and also AICA can be a catalyst for different curators, art critics, and cultural workers. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you at the podcast, and for sure, in January, I'm going to invite everybody to listen to Ezra podcast. I knew about her project, and that's an amazing opportunity for you to share for us the date of this podcast. Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon at different AICA congresses. And have a lovely day.
Thank you, Mihaela. It's been my pleasure. Goodbye.
Goodbye.